JinPingMei Original Version Chapter 80. Pan Jinlian sells sex and goes to bed with her husband, while Li Jiar steals money and returns to Liuan. It is said that Simon King died, but on the first 7 days, the 16 monks of Baoguo Temple were doing water and land. Count Ying was dating 7 people: Zi Zida, Hua Ziao, Zhu Xinian, Sun Tianhua, Chang Zhiji, and Bai Laiguang. They were sitting together. The count spoke first and said, "The high officials are gone, and we are now in the same situation. You and I, during the friendship, I had eaten his things, used his things, and borrowed his things. Today he died. Could it be that he didn't know about it?" He also squinted his descendants' eyes. He went to the 5 kings of hell and wouldn't spare you or me. Now for this kind of calculation. You and I will each give 1 penny, and the 7 of us will pull together 7 pence, hold a table of sacrifices by a scroll, and then beg Mr. Shui made a memorial poem and carried it away. The high officials paid homage to him, and some of them asked him for 7 cents of silver and a piece of filial silk. "Is this good?" Everyone said. "That's what I said." At that moment, everyone pulled their money and handed it over to the earl. They prepared the sacrifices and bought the axes. The Yangshui scholar made the memorial inscriptions. This scholar had always known that Count Ying was a friend of Simon King, so he wrote a memorial poem with hidden sarcasm. The count and others carried the sacrifice to the altar, and Chen Qingqi returned the favor by wearing mourning. The count was the leader, and everyone burned incense. Everyone was vulgar, but he knew what it felt like. After pouring the libations, they just read out the blessing message. The summary of the text says, "In the first year of Wei Zhong, in the Wuxi period, in the 2nd month of the Wuzi period, on the 3rd day of the Yu lunar month, Zhenjian, the students who served as teachers were Ying Zhuge, Zi Zida, Hua Ziao, Zhu Xinian, Sun Tianhua, Chang Zhiji, and Bai Laiguang. I would like to use the ritual of clearing the common people's food to pay tribute to the spirit of the late high-ranking officials Simon and Jinyi." Wei Ling was upright and strong in nature. He was not afraid of the soft and did not surrender to the hard. He always helps others with a little water, and always helps others with his essence. The bag is quite thick and the spirit is impressive. He lifts up when he is happy, but falls down when he encounters darkness. Living in the Jin Crotch team, waist high curry collection. If you have anise, you don't need to scratch it. If you encounter lice, the itching will be unbearable. The favored boy is always there to help. He also stayed in Liuzhou and Jiangtai, and was rampant in Ziguan. It's time to keep your head up and work hard, fighting for a long time. Why do you suffer from a disaster that you can't afford? Seeing this, you stretch your legs and go away, leaving the younger generation behind, like a dove stumbling. Where can you lean? It's hard to reach his fireworks village. It's hard to rely on his 8-character red wall. No longer can we sit together at the same table and watch soft jade. And we can no longer sit together on horseback and watch the warm fragrance. The person who is leaning away lowers his head and settles down, while the person who is avoiding is calm and calm. Today I offer a white turbid drink, and next time I offer an inch cup. The spirit is not ignorant, and it comes to Jan to Shin. Still enjoy. After everyone finished offering sacrifices, Chen Jingji came down to return the gift, and asked him to go to the rolling shed to make 3 soups and 5 cuts, but left without mentioning anything. Let's say that on that day, the devout woman of the Li family in the courtyard heard that Simon King had died. She made a plan, prepared a sacrificial table, and sent Li Gixing and sister Li Gixing to sit in a sedan chair to offer condolences. If Yunyang doesn't come out, Li Jiar and Meng Yulu will take care of her in the upper room. Gixing and sister Gui of the Li family quietly said to Li Jiar, "My mother said that people are already dead. You and I, the people in the courtyard, cannot keep such chastity. Since ancient times, there has been a banquet that lasts for thousands of miles. Let me teach you how to do it." There is something in there. Secretly teach Li Ming to stay at home to defend the rear. You are still stupid. As the saying goes, although Yangzhou is good, it is not a home of long-term love. No matter how long it takes, you will never leave his house. Then Li Jiar took it to heart. Unexpectedly, Wang Lior, the wife of the Japanese and Korean Taoists, also prepared a sacrificial table. Kiao dressed up and came in a sedan chair to burn paper with Simon King. Place the sacrifice before the spirit and just stand there. After standing there for a long time, no one came out to stay with me. It turned out that Simon King died, and within the first 7 hours, Wang Jing was sent away. Whenever the boy saw Wang Li were coming, he didn't dare to go in and say anything. Then Anna didn't know what was going on. He went to Yunyang's room and said to Yunyang, Aunt Han came to write a paper with Dad. She has been standing in front for a day. My uncle asked me to come and tell Mom. Wu Yunyang was still angry in her heart, so she yelled and cursed, "If you don't go with me, you weird thieves and slaves." What kind of Aunt Han and Aunt Mao Bai will come? The thieves and dog-breeding prostitutes who ruined other people's families. When a man dies, his father goes south and his son goes north. A husband flees and his wife is separated. What kind of paper do you have to give him? Lai Anner was scolded and couldn't find the door, so he came to the coffin. Uncle Wu asked, "Have you ever said anything to me later?" Lai Anner was speechless with his mouth shut. After asking for a long time, he said, "Mother has just come out with 4 horses." Uncle Wu hurriedly went in and said to Yunyang, "Sister, why are you waiting like this? Please relax now. Since ancient times, people have always been polite. He is a man and has so much money. How can you wait for someone like this? A good name is rare, so get off soon. If you don't go out and teach the second sister and the third sister to treat him well when he goes out, it's just mediocre. If you do such a thing, let others say you are not." When Na Yunyang saw her brother saying this, she became speechless. After a long time, Meng Yilu came out, returned the gift, and sat with him in front of the soul. After only 1 minute of tea, the woman was a little anxious and couldn't sit still, so she left and laughed. Exactly, whoever draws water from the Shijiang River will inevitably feel ashamed today. Li Gixing, Sister Gui, and Wu Yin'er were all sitting in the upper room. When they saw Yunyang scolding Han Daoguo's wife for being a slut, cutting down one plant would damage hundreds of branches. The two of them couldn't sit still. They had to go home before sunset. Yunyang kept his sister and son together again and again. "Every time I stay with my friend Wang Si, and every time you see me, let's go tomorrow." After staying for half a day, Sister Gui and Sister Yin did not go. He only sent his sister Gixing to her home. In the evening, the monks dispersed. As expected, there were many neighbors, clerks, supervisors, including Kiao Dahu, Uncle Wu, Second Uncle Wu, Uncle Shen, Hua Xiao, Earl Ying, Zi Zaida, Chang Zhiji, and more than 20 people, called for a puppet show, and set up a banquet in the big rolling shed to accompany the night. The drama proposed a Sun Rong and Sun Hua kill dogs to persuade husbands. The guests were all in the hall next to the tomb, surrounding the screen, lowering the curtains, placing tables and seats, and looking outside. Li Ming and Wu Hui agreed here, and once she also went home. After a while, everyone arrived. After the sacrifice, candles were lit in the rolling shed. People sat down at the banquet. Drums were played, and dramas were played. It was moved to the middle of the night, and the play was smooth. It turned out that since the death of Simon King, Chen Jingji had not been teasing Pan Jinlian every day, or he had glanced in front of the funeral and made fun of her behind the curtain. So everyone dispersed. All the guests went to the back, and the servants were collecting their work. Jinlian caught his eye and pinched Jingji, saying, "My son, your mother has made you happy today. While the eldest sister is behind, let's go to your room." After hearing this, Jingji let out a sigh of relief and opened the door first. In the dark shadow, the woman slipped into his room without answering. She unbuttoned her trousers, lay down on the kang, and taught Chen Jingji how to play. It's just that. Lust is as bold as the sky, fearing anything. Love for hundreds of years. The truth is, after meeting each other for 2 years, they become spouses. After several years of marriage, they become harmonious. A willow waist is swinging, and a jade stem is busy. The air tells the love of the rain and the clouds, and the pillow says the eternal oath of friendship. The orioles and butterflies are plentiful, and the fairies are playing with each other in 1,000 ways. The heavy rain is humiliating the clouds, and the charming charms are showing off in thousands of ways. One kept calling her kiss and the other hugged her. The willows are now as green as ever, and the flowers are no longer as red as before. Suddenly the clouds and rain stopped, and the woman, fearing that someone might come, hurriedly left the room and went to the back. The next day, the young man tasted the sweetness and walked to Jinlian's room early in the morning. Jinlian was still under the quilt. Looking out of the window, he saw the woman being surrounded by red clouds, with pink cheeks and jade, and said, "You are good in charge of the warehouse. Why don't we get up?" Today, Kiao's father-in-law came to offer sacrifices, and Andy paid for the lisan that was laid out yesterday, put in the Huangxi family's sacrificial table. "Get up quickly and come out with the key to me." The woman quickly taught Chunmei how to get the key and asked Jingji. Jingji first taught Chunmei to open the door upstairs. The woman then stuck out her tongue from the window, and the two of them smacked each other. It's just how much fat the fragrance fills the mouth with saliva, and the sweet saliva fills the heart and lungs. There are words to prove it. I hate the cuckoo's sound that penetrates the bead curtain. The heart is like a needle, and the love is like glue. I see smiling faces with sad cheeks, thin and slender spring hair, and messy buns, and green pines and clouds. When you sleep, your face will be flushed, and the jade will be reduced and the red will be added. Changku once touched it. It still smells delicious on my lips and tastes sweet when I think about it. After a long time, Chunmei's upstairs door opened, and Jingji looked forward to see the sacrifices being carried. After a while, Kiao Da's family's sacrifices came to lay down. Kiao Dahu's wife and many of Kiao Dahu's relatives paid tribute before the funeral. Uncle Wu, second Uncle Wu, and Brother Gan are here to accompany you. Please come to the rolling shed to take care of me. Li Ming and Wu Hui played and sang. On that day, Zheng Ayuer's family also came to pay their respects with paper. Yunyang ordered Yulu to send out a filial piety skirt and girdle her waist, and sat behind her with the guests. When Zheng Ayuer saw that sisters Li Gui and Wu Yin were here, she scolded them for not telling him. "If I knew that my father was gone, there would be no one who wouldn't come. If you are a good person, you wouldn't let me go soon." "See the moon again after her mother gave birth to a child," she said. "Mother is happy and sad at the same time. Unfortunately, Dad died too early. You have a master, so you don't have to worry." The moon goddess all sent her filial piety and stayed there until late in the evening. On the third day of the second lunar month, the 27th day of the Ximen festival, 16 Taoist priests from the Jade Emperor Temple, Wu Taoguan, chanted sutras and performed rituals at home. On that day, He Qianhu and the Yamen made the creation, and met the two internal ministers Liu and Zhu, as well as Zhou Xiaobai, Jing Dedong, Zhang Tuanlian, Commander Yan and other military attacks, and they jointly made sacrifices on the altar. Yunyang invited Kiao Dahu, Uncle Wu, and Earl Ying to stay with her. Li Ming and Wu Hui, two young children, played and sang, and stayed in charge of the rolling shed. No need to elaborate. Recite sutras in the evening to bid farewell to death. Yunyang carried Li Ping'er's coffin out and set it on fire. Move all the boxes and cages into the upper room and stack them. Nanny Ryer and Yingchen agreed, leaving Shuchen and Li Jiar in the room. Lock the door to Li Ping'er's room. The pity is exactly this. The painted pillars and carved beams are not yet finished, and there are no crazy guests in front of the hall. There is a poem to prove it. The water under Xiangwang Terrace is long, one kind of love sickness and two kinds of sorrow. The moonlight is not as good as the personnel reform, and it is still on top of the white wall late at night. At that time, Li Ming used the Xiaotong to help out every day, secretly teaching Li Jiar to sneak things and deliver them to his home, and then promised to stay away from home for 2 or 3 nights, hiding it from Yunyang's eyes. Second Uncle Wu and Li Jiar had an old relationship, who dared to say no on the 9th day of the lunar month. After reciting the Sankey Sutra, Yunyang left the darkroom and did not recite the sutra on the 4th or 7th day. On the 12th day, Chen Jingji broke the ground and came back. On the morning of the 20th, there were many funeral documents and papers, but the number of mourners was not as dense as that of Li Ping'er. Before leaving the coffin, I also invited the monk lying above in temple to pick up the coffin, sit on the sedan chair, hold it high, and recite a few verses. After reciting, Chen Jingji broke the paper basin, stood up from the coffin, and the whole family burst into tears. Wu Yunyang sat in the soul sedan, and the guests behind her got on the sedan. They all gathered round and walked out of the original ancestral Tomban house 5 miles outside the south gate. Chen Jingji prepared a ruler and asked Yen to direct the ceremony, and Mr. Yin Yangzu was buried. All the filial relatives have covered the ground. There were only 5 or 6 places where Uncle Wu, Qiao Dahu, He Qianhu, Uncle Shen, Uncle Han and other clerks were located on the mountaintop sacrificial table. Wu Taoist official also left 12 Taoist boys to return to their souls and sleep in the open room in the upper room. The yin and yang sweeping has been completed, and all the relatives are sent out. Wu Yunyang and others could not help but accompany their husbands to observe filial piety. One day after I warmed my 2 men came back, I promised my class to rank up to the military level, and everyone said goodbye and went back to the Yamen. On the 57th day of the Ximen festival, Yunyang invited Aunt Su, Aunt Wang, the great master, and 12 nuns to recite sutras, perform repentance, and pray for her husband to be reborn in heaven. Wu Dajin's son and Wu Shenshen's daughter-in-law were all at home. It turned out that during the funeral, Li Qixing and Sister Gui were on the top of the mountain and quietly said this to Li Jiar. Mom said, "You don't have anything soft in your hands, so you don't have to just stay at his house. You have no children, so what are you keeping? I'll teach you to make a fuss and log in." Yesterday, my second brother told me that now the second government of Zhang in the main street wants to spend 500 taels of gold and silver to marry you as the second wife and take care of the family. You are born there, it doesn't matter if you stay here until you die. You and I, the people in this courtyard, have to abandon the old and embrace the new, and follow the trend to become stronger. Don't miss the time. Li Jiar took this thing to heart. After passing Ximen Xingwiki, she didn't use much strength due to the wind and fire. Unexpectedly, Pan Jinlian told Sun Sui that on the day of the funeral, she saw Li Jiar and Uncle Wu talking to each other in the small garden room on the grave. In the Chunmai Xiaodong, I saw Li Jiar passing the tent to Li Ming with a bag of things, stuffed it into his waist, and went home. The yelling Yunyang knew this, scolded Uncle Wu, rushed to the shop to do business, and was not allowed to come back again. The gate is safe, and Li Ming is not allowed to come and go. The flower girl's embarrassment turned into anger, and she couldn't find the reason. One day, Yunyang was having tea with the eldest concubine in the upper room, and she invited Meng Yulu, but she didn't invite him. She got angry and made a big fuss with Yunyang. They patted Ximen Qingling's bed, cried, and howled. Howl, at midnight, I have to hang myself in the room. The girl came to repay Yunyang. Yunyang panicked and discussed with the eldest concubine, asking the Li family's godly mother-in-law to send him back to the hospital. Afraid of leaving behind his clothes, head and face, Jin Po said a few words. My family is just a lowly person in your place, and it's easy to get away with it. We need dozens of taels of money to cover up our humiliation. Uncle Wu was an official, but he didn't dare to make any claims. After talking to him for a long time, he taught Yunyang to give him all the clothes, jewelry, boxes, bed tents, and household chores in his room before sending him out. I just don't want to go with his 2 girls, Yuing Xiao and Xu Chun. Li Jiar wants these 2 girls' life and death. Yunyang refused to live or die with him and said, it would be better for you to buy a good girl and turn her into a prostitute. One sentence frightened the madam, and she didn't dare to speak. She turned into a smile and said goodbye to Yunyang. Li Jiar got on the sedan and carried her home. The judge heard that the singers in the courtyard make a living by being pretty and make a career out of makeup. They are romantic in the morning and prodigal in the evening. I enter through the front door and pick up my son through the back door. They abandon the old and pity the new. They open their eyes to money. This is the law of nature. Rao Jun is attached to you in every possible way. and all kinds of cages can't lock him away from his will. Either they stole food and wiped their mouths when they were alive, or they left the house shouting after death. No matter what time of day, I would eat porridge from the same old pot. Exactly, the snake enters the tube with its curvature, and the bird flies lightly out of the cage. There are poems to prove it. It's a joke that the fireworks will not last long, and the bridegroom will be changed every night. 2 jade wrists serve as pillows for thousands of people, and a bit of red lips can be tasted by thousands of guests. Create all kinds of beauties and create a false heart. Mr. Rao always has a trap in his mind, and it is hard to guarantee that he will miss his hometown temporarily. Yoon sent Lee Ji-ar out and burst into tears. Everyone was standing by to give advice, and Pan Jinlian said, "Sister, stop worrying. As the saying goes, marry a prostitute and raise hiking. And you don't have enough food and water to think about Haidong." This is what he did for a living in the past, and today he teaches a big "my sister is so irritating." The house was in chaos, and suddenly he came to report that he was safe. "Dad Kaizunian is here. He is sitting in the hall." I said that my father is gone. He asked how long he was gone. "I died of illness on the 21st of the first lunar month. It has been 5 weeks now." He asked if there was a spirit, and I answered that there was a spirit and was supporting him from behind. If he wanted to come and worship in front of the spirit, I would tell my mother. Yoon said, "Teach your brother-in-law to go out and meet him." After a while, Chen Jingji put on his morning clothes and went out to meet with Kai Yeshi. After a long time, they finished packing and invited Kai Yeshi to come in and pay homage in front of Simon Kingling. Yoon was dressed in filial piety and came out to return the gift. Without saying a word, Yoon said, "Madam, please go back to your room." Then he said to Jingji, "I used to disturb you in the mansion, and now I'm back to the capital after my mission is over. I come to pay my respects and thank you. Unexpectedly, I have become an old friend." Then he asked, "What's the disease?" Chen Jingji said, "It's a phlegm-fire disease." Kai Yeshi said, "It can be heard. It can be heard." Then he called his family members to come up, took out 2 pieces of Hangzhou silk, a pair of velvet socks, for tails of white cattails, and for jars of candied fruits, and said, "These small gifts can be regarded as a memorial ceremony." He also took out 50 taels of silver and said, "This is a generous loan I made to Mr. Xiang in the past. Now I have accumulated some salary to repay it, so as to keep our friendship from beginning to end." Fen Fuping'en said, "Big officer, hand it over to the room." Jingji said, "That is too careless." Yoon said, "Dad, please sit in the front hall." Kai Yeshi said, "There's no need to sit down. Bring some tea and have it for an hour." After a while the tea was brought up. After Kai Yeshi ate, he got up and got into the sedan chair. Yoon got the 50 taels of silver, and she felt so happy and so sad at the same time. When he was round, officials came like this and were willing to let them go. "I don't know how late we will be drinking." Today he stretched out his legs, had nothing to do with his belongings, and saw no one to accompany him. It's just that, when people make friends, it's the wind and moon, and when the sky opens up, it's the country. When Li Jiar arrived home, Count Ying heard about it and reported it to Zhang Erguan. So he came with 5 taels of silver and asked him to rest for the night. It turns out that Zhang Erguan's little Simon King is 1 year old, and he is a rabbit, so he is 32 years old. Li Jiar was 34 years old, but the Jinpo hid the fact that she was 6 years old. She only said that she was 28 years old, so the Earl kept it a secret. He spent 300 taels of silver, married her into his family, and became his second wife. Zhu Xinian and Sun Zizui still led Wang Sangwaner, and even came to Li's house to have sex with Sister Gui. The Earl, Li San, and Huang Si borrowed 5,000 taels of silver from Zhu Nixiang, and Zhang Erguan paid out 5,000 taels, and made a batch of money and food for the Dongbing Mansion's ancient utensils. And the horses and saddles were swaying in the courtyard day after day. Seeing that Simon King was dead, Zhang Erguan also packed up thousands of taels of gold and silver, went to Tokyo to seek out the relatives of Emperor Zheng of the Privy Council, and told Tai Weizhu in the hall that he wanted to take advantage of Simon King's vacancy in the prison. The family is tidying up, buying a garden, and building a house. Earl Ying stayed with him every day and told him everything about Simon King's family, saying, "There is also a fifth wife in his family, Pan Jinlian, who is the sixth sister. She was born as beautiful as a painting, and her poems he is proficient in all kinds of songs and poems, including Taoist calligraphy and Shuanglu chess. He also writes good calligraphy and plays the pipa well. He is less than 30 years old this year, and he is even better than he can sing." The second official Zhang was so angry that he wanted to kill her, so he asked, "Is it Wu Daling's wife who sold cooking cakes?" The count said, "That's her. She took over the house, and now there are 5 after 6 years. I don't know whether he will marry or not." Zhang Erguan said, "If you are tired, please inquire. When there is talk of getting married, you can come and tell me. Just wait until I get married." The earl said, "I have a person in my body who is a family member in his family. His name is Lai Jur. When I tell him, if there is any talk of getting married, I will report to you. It is rare for you to marry someone like him and come to our family. It's better than marrying a singer." At that time, when the high official Simon King was there, I spent a lot of effort to marry him. Most things have their own owners, and it's hard to say, so I have to be a happy match. If you have such a brilliance, it would be a waste to share the wealth with this beautiful woman. I only called Jur to inquire closely, but there is a married woman named Feng Zhou. You use my sweet words to impress her, but you use hundreds of taels of silver to win her love. If you marry her into your family, you can use her as much as you want." The judge heard that all the helpers in the world are extremely snobs. At the beginning, Simon King treated Earl Ying like a stick, better than his compatriots. On that day, he did not eat from him, but wore his clothes and accepted his. Not long after his death, his flesh and bones were still warm, so he committed many unjust things. It is difficult to paint the skin of a tiger, and it is difficult to paint the bones of a tiger. There is a poem to prove it. In the past, the sound was like a golden orchid, and hundreds of tricks were used to follow it. Since Simon's death, many people have found concubines to sleep with.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.